Welcome everyone, and welcome to Kids in Mind, the webinar series. This is our second webinar of the series. Last webinar series, we talked about kids and COVID. And next webinar, we're going to be talking about vaccines and safety in kids and youth. But today, being Wednesday night, we have a seminar on practical strategies to help families. And in particular, we're talking about positive communication and how to have fun with your kids. It's an absolute pleasure today to welcome Professor Leanne Togher as our special guest. Leanne is a top researcher, recognised internationally for her research in communication, has won the top prize in Australia for her research. And so she brings a lot of knowledge about positive communication. Now, you might be asking me, why are we talking about positive communication in the middle of a pandemic? Because things are really stressful and we're doing a lot of arguing and people are being really annoying. Well, the reality is that positive communication, having a good relationship, makes a huge difference to solving many of the problems. I remember my son just the other day said to me, "Dad, can I have 2.5 pieces of toast?" In that moment, my eyes just went red. I was like, 1, 2, not a half a piece of toast. But it's those little moments that happen all the time, all day, that can become a bit too much. And we need some credits, some positive stuff in our relationship to get it moving. In fact, relationships experts have often described relationships a bit like a bank account, that if there are too many debits, it can be really hard to do lovely things for another person. Kids start to say no, kids start to feel pressured, and they don't want to engage in the family. We need the credits. We need the credits for motivation, for interest, and for bonding. And so today we're going to be talking with Professor Leanne Togher about how to do that. We're starting with a pre-record, and then we'll be having questions after what is about 15, 20 minutes of the pre-record. So we'll start the pre-record now. If you're having trouble engaging children in sort of positive communication in the home, is there anything else you'd suggest if they're not engaging in story time, if they're spending too much time on the computers and they're not interested in talking to you, what would you suggest?
Well, I think there's two parts to this. One is having experiences with your children. So going to the park with them, doing extra, making an occasion of something, because once you've done that together, then you can talk about that later. And we talk about this idea of a jointly produced narrative. This is where we tell stories together when we've both been engaged in something. So if you've been to the park, like for example, I've got older kids and we're walking every day now through COVID and lockdown, and every day we go for a walk, we see something different. And so for the last couple of days, we've noticed there's these really cute little puppies that stick their nose under the fence down this walkway that we walk down, and they are adorable. They are the most gorgeous puppies, and they stick their head under, and we've been giving them a pat. And it's been really, lovely. So you come home, and then we've talked about these puppies when we've come home. We've told my husband, it's like, we saw these amazing puppies when we went for this walk. And then, my daughter will talk about that. Oh, this puppy was really cute. It had really soft fur. It was really beautiful. It had red kind of color fur, and it was really like silk. And then we went and looked up what kind of puppy would it be? Like, it was what breed is this puppy? And so she went and did that. And she said, if I ever get another puppy, this is what I'd like to get. And so then we've been researching this puppy, what kind of, not that I want to get a puppy anytime soon, but it's just generated this whole lot of conversation because we jointly did this thing together and came back, and it was a positive, warm experience for us. Fleeting, like it was just a really quick thing on a walk, but it's built up into having some lovely conversations about puppies and dogs. And now we took a photo of them, and they've gone on Facebook, and other people are writing to Georgia to say we've got one of those, and look at this puppy. So I think you can build a narrative, you can build a story from everyday things that you're doing, even just going for a walk. And that, my kids are in their older teens now and early 20s. And so these principles apply really regardless. It's for children and for adults, this notion of doing things together and then being able to talk about them can, and that's a lot of what we do. We talk about, remember the time we had our 21st birthday and, we had that party and, oh yeah, I remember that. And this person did X, Y, Z. We do a lot of those telling stories together. With family.
Yeah, and can you tell me a bit about parallel play? What does that mean, and how do you do that well?
Well, I think with play, it's with any activity that we're doing together side by side. It might be like, for me, recently I made a cheesecake with my daughter. So it doesn't really matter what the activity is, but whatever, if you're doing an activity, if your child is focused on that activity and what's happening, you can talk about that. So you're not actually drilling the child about how, what are you going to make now, or what building are you going to make with your Lego. It's really sitting down together and going, well, I'm going to do this. I like these blue bricks. I'm going to make a blue castle out of these bricks. And we know that kids will start talking. They'll say, well, I'm going to build a red castle and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. So by being there in the moment with your child, however old they are, you do start to talk. It's a natural thing to promote, and you can then build on what that child might be saying. You might be able to build in some new vocabulary, for example, in what you're building. And the same with older kids. It's for us, we were talking about some ingredients that my daughter hadn't heard of before, and so we were looking through the cookbook, and so the activity generates talking, and hopefully you're doing something that's fun for you and for the child.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? Because when thinking about older kids, and particularly teenagers, it can be a bit harder to find that fun thing that they're willing to engage in, can't it?
It can. I think, and we've certainly found this with some of the work that we'd done. Some people had, their relative had a brain injury, but they'd really stopped having conversations maybe for years. And so there wasn't a lot of interaction. And we realised that they'd kind of lost touch with what topics are each other even interested in. What are things you're interested in? And I think the challenge for us with teenagers is finding out what is your child interested in, and then once you've got that, you've got a little hook, if you like, to be able to get into their world, if you like. And it may be some particular, like Marvel movies, or it might be a particular kind of game, or it might be watching TikTok with them. Yeah. Whatever it is, if that's what they're interested in, that's what they want to do, then you do it with them. And pretty soon they'll be bringing, like, I've got my daughter coming in saying, have a look at this TikTok, it's hilarious. And so we do that together. So it's really finding out what's interesting them, what is it what's happening in their world, and building your conversations around that.
Actually, I've got a confession to make, Leanne. My kids were interested in a certain computer game. I won't name it here just in case.
Okay. Yeah.
When I first saw them playing this computer game, I was like, you shouldn't be. I was quite critical. This is everyone. I've heard this is quite addictive.
Yeah.
And anyway, they kept showing a lot of interest in it. So I don't know what happened, but I just went, I'm going to give up and I'm going to play it with them and just see what happened. And it was amazing. I mean, not to support that computer game, but I had so much fun with my kids when we all did it together. And actually, the truth be told, I was the one who ended up becoming the most addicted. So I recently had to stop. But
well, my daughter turned 18 last week, and we were meant to have a party for 50 people, and of course we're just here in lockdown, we couldn't have a party. And I said to her, what do you want to do? Like, you can, within the realms of we're sitting at home, we're locked down, we can't go anywhere, but what do you want to do? And she said, I'd really like us all to sit down and play a computer game on the TV. So, because she said, I know you're really bad at it. And so, which I am. I've got very poor visual hand I've got shocking coordination. But that was the funny bit, like it was, and I said, oh, all right, and so like you, we sat down, we cooked the dinner that she wanted, and then we sat down, we played this game, and we really did have fun. It was, me driving off the road all the time and doing stupid things, that was where a lot of the fun happened. And we were talking while we were playing. That's the other thing. You do actually talk. You're talking about what you're doing, watch out for that, so there's a lot of kind of conversation, but it's conversation related to the task you're doing. And she said to me afterwards, I really did have a great birthday because we were all together, and we were playing this game together, and we were doing something she was really interested in, was something that she really wanted to do. So you can it's rather than thinking, oh, they shouldn't be on the screen time all the time, and you don't want your child on screen time all the time. You obviously want them to be doing a range of things. But if that's where they are, then, you put down everything, you go and sit with them and do it.
You've got to meet them where they're at, don't you?
You do.
I mean, part of the problem is there's so much pressure on everyone. Sometimes we can be so focused on if they're performing well enough, if they're doing well enough. And if that's all the message that they're sort of getting from us, that sort of really negatively affects the community.
Doesn't make them want to talk to us if we're criticizing, you haven't done your spelling, you haven't done your maths, what are you doing? And we have to be parents and monitor that some of the time. We're the responsible adult in the house, but not all the time. And you do, sometimes you do have to actually create the opportunity to have those positive interactions.
Yeah. Just on that, Leanne, in our world, when we sort of provide support for social development, we really focus on those responses, what we sort of call joint interactive play. So, if we put out a initiation or what we sometimes call a bid, we'll be hoping to get a response, but we don't always get responses. And it sounds like it's really important that when you get that response, to sort of treat that like gold and really build on that response. Yeah.
It's a real opportunity to build a conversation. And if you don't get a response, well, then you just talk about what you're doing, and see if you can, get them interested. Asking kids their opinions about things, asking them about their feelings, there's lots of different ways we can engage our kids, and question asking is a really good strategy. What questions are you asking your child? And I talked before about testing questions, or have you done your homework, that kind of question. They're not very fun. But if you're asking a child about, they've just watched a cartoon and you go, wow, what did you think of that? Or letting them developing their problem-solving ability and their predictive ability. What do you think is going to happen next? Or what would have been a better end to that? Did you like the end of that cartoon? Like, what would have been better? How would you have done that? So opening up some creative questions, giving the child some opportunity to express how they're feeling. Because I think in this particular time that we're living through, kids would be going through a whole range of feelings. They're missing their friends, they're missing going to school. There's a lot of things that they were expecting that was going to happen, and now it's not. So, I think we're going to have a very resilient bunch of kids, to be honest, after what we've been through, because they're going to be able to deal with the unexpected. But we need to be really in tune with how they're feeling. And I think opening up that opportunity is as easy as just asking your child, how are you feeling today?
And how do you make sure you're in tune when your children share that?
Sorry?
When children share their emotions, how do you make sure
you acknowledge and you respect what they're, the fundamental basis of all the approach that we've developed with this training program is acknowledging a person is really important. Acknowledge that they're feeling sad, acknowledging the situation we're in, and I guess retaining some hope that we will get through this. I mean, I've said that to my kids every day. we're taking this one day at a time. Let's have a fun day today. We'll see what happens tomorrow. So trying to acknowledge, yes, I realise this is really tough, and then providing some positive way of moving forward. I think that's really how we've done it, and that's what we've done with our people with brain injury. You know, it's keeping hope in the future, thinking about, you know, what goals do you want to achieve, working with what you've got to be able to achieve those goals.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes when kids say something that even scares us, if we don't have the answers, if we don't know the future, we can try and shut it down just to sort of, if we shut it down, if we dismiss it, maybe it's not going to be an issue. But that sort of communication can cause problems, it sounds like.
I think so. I mean, I think we need to be realistic. You know, kids can see what's going on. You know, my teenage kids can definitely see what's going on. So it's acknowledging it and also saying, I don't know, I haven't got the answers on this, because I don't think many people do at the moment. And but you know, we're trusting in the you know, that we're going to get through today. We're keeping each other safe. We're keeping each other healthy. You know, we're doing positive things. We're going for walks. We're making sure we have some downtime. We make sure we're not sitting at our computers all the time. Yeah. So having positive strategies, I think, you know, giving them positive ways to dealing with it, but also not saying, well, this will be all better next week, like, because we can't say that.
Yeah. It's unrealistic, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Okay, so that's the pre-record. We've got this chat function now for questions and answers, but we're just going to push the reality is Leanne and I actually got talking for a very long time, and we had to cut the conversation because we talked for way too long. We could talk all night, I think. But one of the things I think we need to emphasize is positive communication can be a really hard thing to do. I'll give you an example. The other, on the weekend after actually doing our pre-record, I was like, we're going to do something really nice as a family. And so I took all my kids down to the park, and we went for this, you know, lovely walk beside a river. And we're going to do that for like half an hour. But the entire time that we were doing that, there was whinging and there was complaining, and I don't want to be doing this. And for the first 10 or 15 minutes, I was like ready to jump back in the car and go back home. And you know, there was almost this sense of absolute despair about, here we are trying to do something really lovely, and I've got all this negative communication going on. They don't even appreciate it when we're trying to make a big effort. And I hear that from families all the time, that response, that it can be a really hard process to start engaging in positive communications. But actually what ended up happening is, once we rode through the pain and everything settled down, and all of a sudden we started noticing, so kind of what Leanne did. We didn't notice any fluffy dogs, I have to say, but I'll have to look out for them a bit. But as we started noticing things in the environment, and almost like the arousal in everyone's body just sort of calmed down, and we started to enjoy the moment. So did you want to talk, Leanne, really about what are the sort of the really important aspects of a positive communication style, stuff that you've done for years and really shown has huge benefits? What are the key features?
I think the key features are, and these are things we've identified in our training and tried them out, and they work. And it's really having just approaching a conversation with some fairly basic concepts. And one of the concepts is thinking, I'm just going to talk to my child, or it could be your partner as well. I mean, this isn't just about kids, this is conversation broadly. Talk to them like they're a teammate. You know, think about having a backwards and forwards conversation, that you're both going to have turns. We talk about the idea of throwing the ball to each other, you know, so you make sure you both have a turn and you're both contributing, you're both listening. Listening is a very, very important skill, giving somebody time to respond. And when they've got the ball, you listen really carefully. And then when they throw back the ball to you, you don't hog the ball, you know, and you have a bit of a turn, then you hand it back. So I think part of being a good conversationalist is just being aware of what you're doing and bringing it to your consciousness. what am I doing when I have a conversation with my child? How am I approaching it? Am I positive? Am I smiling? Do I look like I'm, I want to have fun with them? Am I enthusiastic? These are features that when people are having poor conversations, we see that, there's flat facial expression. They don't really want to be there. I can imagine, when things aren't going well, everyone's like, oh, this is not going the way I wanted it to. And you can tell in everyone's demeanor that they're not having fun.
Yeah.
So it's really approaching the conversation with a really positive attitude that, hey, we're going to have fun with this. It doesn't always work out. As you say, it doesn't, we can have negative conversations. Sometimes it's better just to have a break and give everyone other options. Why don't we do something different? And that's okay. You can't have perfect conversations all the time.
But I think just to emphasize on that, it is really important to be very intentional, to be really focused. And this is when you do say this is a time you're going to try and engage, that's not the time when you remind about homework. That's not the time when you sort of talk about the practice they haven't done. It's the time when it's really just focused on the positive communication. And for you, that might mean that you have to choose a time when you're relaxed, they're relaxed, when there's a greater chance of success. And as you said, it may not be the first time. And it brings me to, we've got a bit of chat coming through. It brings me to a question actually by Anthony. And Anthony asks, what advice would you give to parents who feel that they've lost that connection with their child, where their child doesn't really converse for them outside of the formalities and needs?
Well, I think, why aren't they conversing would be my first question. What's interfering with them having conversations? Is there something else going on with that child about why they're not conversing? So I think it's thinking carefully about what the issues are. But it may be that what you're approaching the child with is something that they're not particularly interested in. Are you a little bit like when we did that pre-record, really thinking about what the interests of the child are, what kind of, when you approach that child, are you giving them positive options? Are you giving them choices about things that they might really want to do? I mean, if a child's sort of detached and not engaging, it may be because what you're offering them isn't really what they're interested in. So it's really that sense of giving them some really some choice as well. So do you want to go to the park today? Would you like to go to the park and we'll go on the swings? Or would you like to go for a swim? Or so whatever it is that interests the child, giving them choice and engaging with them, really trying to put yourself in their shoes, what's happening for them in their life, and giving them things to talk about that they're interested in, and a little bit what I was talking about in the pre-record about jointly produced narratives. So doing things with the child so that you've got things to talk about together, that you've done together. I think that's another key strategy you can use.
I'd also think about the degree to which you're going from zero to quite a lot. So a lot of parents, they say to me, I've just went up to my child and my teenager usually and said, why don't we go play tennis? Or why don't we go fishing or something? And they've just turned me back. And when they've done that, they've spent the last year being quite disconnected. And so you often do need a bit of a build up. You need to, sort of what Leanne said earlier, you need to do subtle things. Young people need to feel like they're respected and cared about by their parents. And there might be things that you say that show an interest that could be very subtle, that can just start a different communication between the parent and the child. The other thing I'd say is sort of what you said, Leanne, is you do have to think about what's the history of that communication and how did that start. So another question we have: younger kids often have a tendency to develop strong affinity to a particular area of interest, such as dinosaurs and computer games. is it tempting to steer them towards a variety that can be challenging to engage them? Do you suggest that's a part of healthy development, to just keep engaging with them in conversation only around what they're interested in? Or should you challenge them?
I think it depends on a lot of things, the answer to that question. I think it depends on the time of day, how awake and alert and engaged, and, is the child open to new experiences? Are they open to looking at a new book? But if they're not, don't stress out about that. If a child has a really strong interest in dinosaurs, well, then you try and get as many different books about dinosaurs that you can. And in fact, I know some adults who are still very interested in dinosaurs, and that's what they read all the time. So I think it can be, that can be a lifelong thing. We do get interested in particular areas and we focus on those, and you can vary how you engage with dinosaurs. You might have toy dinosaurs, you might draw dinosaurs, you might have books of dinosaurs, you might watch dinosaur cartoons and movies. There's lots of ways you can shake it up if you're talking about dinosaurs, and still be encouraging the child to develop and learn new things. So I wouldn't get too stressed about it. I think if they're looking interested, and there's another book there with some other topic in it that you can try it out. But if it doesn't work out, then I'd go back to what's comfortable, particularly in the world we're in at the moment. We're in lockdown. You really want to, I guess, comfort the child, give them a safe, happy place to be playing, and where they're not having too many demands placed upon them.
That's really great advice, Leanne. And interestingly enough, you can create different narratives, and creative play even within their interests, is one of the points you made very nicely. So you may need to engage in dinosaurs, and I tell you what, I'm so glad I don't have to listen to Wiggles anymore, but there might be a way to introduce into that narrative.
Yeah.
And actually, we'll be talking a bit about that in the social development chat in a future webinar.
Yeah.
Now, strategies for kids who don't like questions. How do you engage kids who don't like being put on the spot? Which sort of goes a bit back to Anthony's question a little bit too.
Well, if they don't like it, then I'd say don't do it. If they don't like direct questions, and it goes back to what makes for a fun conversation. What we found in some of the work we did, and this was with adults, adult mothers talking to their adult sons after a brain injury, they were asking them lots of direct questions to sort of see how much they could remember, and that was their main way of having a conversation. And it was not fun. I mean, we rated those conversations and they were very unenjoyable. And what was much more enjoyable was either just talking in a positive way about what they were going to be doing that day. If they did ask questions, it was to give the person some choices about what they might want to do that day. Do you want to go up to the shopping centre, or would you like just to go out for a walk? So it was really, they were questions that were going to, I suppose, benefit the person that they were talking to. So asking open-ended questions are better than closed questions. So asking a person about, what did you enjoy about what we did this morning? Asking them, as I've said before, opinions and feelings. There's questions that are much more encouraging and engaging for somebody to respond to. And I think they're ones where you're demonstrating genuine interest, genuine questions where you're asking about a person's welfare, about what they want to do, that are giving them choices, are much better than just asking a direct question that's testing somebody.
Yeah.
If a person really doesn't like having questions asked of them, I would say keep your talking more to a commentary about what you're doing. and following the child's lead. So if the child says something, then you respond to it. You mentioned previously, you know, that sometimes a child will give you a little piece of gold, and you grab that piece of gold. So listening very carefully to what a child's saying and following their lead is another way to engage without having to actually ask questions.
And I also think that, that this is partly the function of things like story time and bedtime. You know, it gives you that time where it's a structured part of the day between yourself and the child, obviously younger children. But, you know, you can create in that one-on-one or one-on-three, depending on how many kids, 10 you've got, you can, you know, that's an opportunity there to not only read stories, but also to ask questions about the stories and, you know, listen to questions from the kids in that time. So I think you've got to, as going back to it, you know, having a structure and choosing your moments to really share with your children is really important.
Yeah, I'd agree. Absolutely.
All right. Look, I think that's about it. I guess the only other thing I'd ask, you know, what are other benefits beyond just the communication style and the relationship to positive communication?
Well, I think, and we've found this when we've helped people improve their conversational skills, the key, there are quite far-reaching benefits that you wouldn't even think about. So it just makes you, like we were measuring things like quality of life. It was improving a person's quality of life, their sense of well-being, their how close the relationship was with the person that they were talking to improved. And it also helps us build our identity and our sense of who we are. So if you're having positive conversations and somebody values your opinion, and they, you know, you're learning how to be socially skilled in a conversation, that's going to impact on every other component of your life. And for a child, it's critical that they have those positive experiences early in life, because that helps them develop a sense of who they're going to be as they grow up, and how they're going to engage and build new friendships, and, you know, be able to engage in a classroom environment and so on. So, you know, be able to have a chat with someone that they don't know when they start a new sport or a new activity after school or something. So they're kind of the building blocks that we need to develop early in life, that really help us engage socially in every other aspect of our lives. And the same is true of us as adults. So our capacity to have a good conversation can impact on all aspects of how you go, in terms of how you go with your work, how you go if you're studying at university, how you're interacting with new friends, maintaining friendships with old friends, all those things. Yeah. So it really does extend beyond just being able to be a good conversational participant.
Actually, I mean, I could keep talking, I will keep talking, but it's that, you know, that idea of small chit chat. People often go, what's the point of small chit chat? But it's just, it actually really is so important. You learn so much about other people and how to have conversations during that. One of the other things that I guess I'd comment on is that positive communication and positive relationships, it has an impact on both people. So we know that the more positive communication that you have with your child, that not only impacts on the degree that they respond to you, it affects their entire body. So you know, there's lots of research that shows a whole range of hormones are released. You probably know where I'm going here, in the brain and body, in parents when they have positive communication with their children. And in turn, that entire physiological response occurs in the child. And we think that, you know, back and forth between parent and child is sort of, as you say, the foundation of not only bonding, but also the development of social skill. Yeah, so,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, perfect summary.
All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. I think you've been absolutely fantastic, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday night, where we're talking about safety and vaccines with Associate Professor Nicholas Wood. Thanks, Leanne.
Thanks, Adam.